So y'all take turns on whoever wants to answer it.
Okay.
Initially, and then we'll go to the second. So, first off, again, I want to thank y'all for locating an NRH. I know the investment of time, effort, just to put plans together and get the structure in place before you turn the first dollar is extremely difficult, and it's a hard decision to make. But let's think back, not about coming to North Richland Hills, but your business in general. When did you know it was time to take the leap of faith to start your business, and what led you to believe that you could do it?
I guess in my case, I was raised in a entrepreneurial family, and gosh, from the time I was in junior high, I always saw myself as owning my own business. Truthfully, I thought it was going to be in the automotive area because I'm a nut for everything from hot rods to classic cars, and I thought somehow I would be associated. Kind of ended up accidentally, ended up in the food business, and then fell in love with that. But arrived at a point where I had worked in a fairly large privately held restaurant company. You all would know it as Taco Bueno and Crystal's Pizza and Spaghetti, and some big restaurants called Casa Bonita. Had left there, worked there 9 years, and then worked for El Chico after the Cuellar family bought it back and became president there also. And so a private and a public experience, and truthfully my father had always told me, after you get out of school, you go work for somebody who knows what they're doing and kind of learn something about the business before you risk your own money, which I didn't have. But anyway, and so I felt like, my wife and I felt like we could afford to take the gamble. And I grew up in the operating side of the business, the day-to-day preparing the food, serving the customers, and marketing the business. And so we just decided to take the leap, and thank goodness we did. But that was after 20 years out of college working for other people.
So for me, it was a little different. I decided to take the leap with Alamo Drafthouse. It was 2 weeks before my second deployment to Afghanistan, and my wife informed me that she was pregnant with our first kiddo. So it was kind of time for Peter Pan to come home and grow up. I had a background in sales and finance kind of before that. I went into the Army a little later in life, and always wanted to own my own business, but liked the idea of something that was secure and proven. And so that's kind of why my head went to the franchise route, and wrote the business plan for Alamo during that second tour to Afghanistan, and then came home in 2010, and in 2013 we opened the first store in Richardson. So for me, it was kind of a combination of growing up and loving movies. I started attending Alamo Drafthouse in 2001 when I was doing undergrad work in Austin, and so that kind of love for it led me down that path, and then a baby girl on the way is what made me leave my military experience. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I can't say enough about Paul to you, a family-owned business. My business, my wife and I have worked next to each other for 30 years, offices next to each other. My kids work with me, work for me, and I know that y'all are in the same boat. Your son and daughter are here, and they're, I hope you'd introduce them.
You bet. Charlotte, Tiffany, and Joel, y'all all stand up. Charlotte in the pink is my life's partner, my wife. And Tiffany and Joel are my son and daughter. And the truth is, they actually own the company now. I lost my first wife to cancer in 2008, and we had already put the company in trust at that time that they would own it. And so now they own it, and I work for them. But it is, as Mayor says, there's no pleasure greater than get to work with your own children every day. Every day. There's only one downside is even on Thanksgiving lunch or whenever it is, you're talking business.
Amen to that. So why did y'all choose NRH? What factors did you consider in selecting this location?
We had not opened a restaurant in about 10 years and had decided we wanted to. We actually were talking with another city in the Metroplex that was so excited we were thinking about their city, and we had done some work, made a presentation and so forth, and actually had gotten turned off at their interest one night. Now, I have to explain to you one thing that we do. If you're looking for a lot of business school research and so forth, decide where you want to go, you're going to have to get that answer from somebody, because it's not really what we do. We look over the area. We certainly look for potential customers. Honestly, we look for people that we understand kind of how they think, how their lives occur, and we have to look for a place that has a lot of employees. We'll be employing about, I guess Sweetie Pie's open somewhere between 400 and 500 people. So if those people are not available somewhat in the area, it's kind of a non-starter. But the other thing that we do, and we do some looking at competition, blah, 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 traffic patterns, access, ingress. But the biggest thing we do is once we start talking with somebody, and Craig and Mark both know this, we are looking and we pray about it, and all of us pray, and we just ask the Lord, if this is not what he wants us to do, that he'll shut the door. Well, it turned out that the other city we were talking to, that door was not only shut, it was slammed shut, evidently. And one of my favorite stories that we talk about in our managers' meetings is the very next morning is when I got that next call from Craig. And, of course, we had talked enough in the past. I knew well who he was. We had not spent a lot of time over here. We came and looked, and we got to know Mark and got to go Brother Jimmy Perdue and the mayor. And as we got to know all these folks, we found people that we knew we could do business with that understood our business primarily. We were not too worried about whether we understood theirs, but we sure needed somebody that understood what it was to be in our business. And they did, and we knew we could work with them. And it's been a great relationship.
My story's not as good as that. It does involve Craig not leaving me alone, but I don't know if that was divine intervention or just his go-getter attitude. So I live in Colleyville. I live 5 minutes from here, so I've been in North Tarrant County now for almost 8 years. And so since me and my family moved to DFW from Austin as we brought the Alamo brand up here, so having a theater close to the house was a selfish want ever since we moved here. Driving to Richardson from Colleyville is not fun to go see, Frozen with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. So it was something we always looked for, and we had our eyes on North Tarrant County ever since we came into this market. And for us, it is very demographically driven. We're looking for incomes, we're looking for density, which there is absolutely plenty of in this market. And what's nice for us is that more of that is coming. So the 1-year outlook from opening to to that 1-year mark looked great, and the 5-year outlook looks even better. And then the other thing for us is, Dallas-Fort Worth does not have mountains and it does not have oceans, but man, it has restaurants, and that is a great thing for consumers. That is a very tough thing for restaurant owners, because finding good staff and keeping good staff is difficult. So having the density and the incomes, and also kind of a plethora of people, of kids that will come work for us, was absolutely imperative. And this was not a reach, but for the most part, theaters like to be on these very large highways and main thoroughfares. And while where we're located in North Richland Hills is 3 very traveled streets, it was a little bit of a reach for us not to be on a traditional highway, and it has been the best decision. It's been incredible since we opened in May.
That's great. Like I say, if you haven't been there, you need to go. You're missing out. So we face challenges on a daily basis. Some are large, some small. Can you recall a challenge that you thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle this? And how did you overcome it?
In thinking about that, I think of, actually in our history, 3 particular times that for a period of months really wasn't sure we were going to make it. I'll try to make this fast, but it may be worth you hearing a little bit about. I don't know how many people remember Resolution Trust, and I guess, was that the late 1980s? I believe that's what it was. The banks got in trouble. They overextended their credit. The federal government stepped in and took over their loans. In the process of doing that, they were able to take their loans and put them in 2 stacks. Ones that the banks did not think that there was any risk that the customer would not pay their note. They could put them in a stack, and the federal government took them over. And the ones that they kept, they wanted to make sure were very good. Well, we had a $125,000 note on our, I believe, only restaurant at the time, Bubba's across from SMU. We had paid actually ahead. We'd never missed a payment. We'd never done anything wrong. But because we were a restaurant, our note was put in that stack. When it's put in that stack, you get a call from Resolution Trust. They said, "Come down, young man, we want to talk to you." And they're basically, you sit down across from 2 federal agents, and they explain to you that you will pay off your note. Well, the truth is, I couldn't have found $100,000 or $125,000 with a search warrant, you know. And we wouldn't have borrowed it if we'd had it. I mean, but anyway. And so there wasn't any way we could pay it. And they go to the restaurant, they inventory the equipment. They figure out it ain't worth much anyway. And so they kind of don't ever tell us they're going to work with us. But we were as nice, we responded, and we prayed constantly about it. And after about 1.5 years, a bank stepped up. Banks didn't loan any money for a while, of course. All of a sudden, a new bank that wanted to establish themselves, and we, thank goodness, had good enough reputation that having Bubba's as an account was important. And they were just getting started, and they wanted to hang their flag on something. And so they offered to finance that remaining, I don't know, $80,000 or whatever it was, before Resolution Trust finally came in and got us. But it was 1 year plus. I didn't know day to day if we were going to make it. There's 2 more times, basically just like that. One includes the landlord, the other one includes IRS. Fun, fun, fun.
2008.
Yeah.
Man, misery loves company. That always, it does feel good as a business owner to hear everybody else's problems because, you have so many of your own, and, being an owner or an operator of a business, that's what you do every day is put out fires. I think that's the thing. I mean, we have challenges right now. We opened 5 theaters in 14 months, which we were not supposed to do. That was supposed to be over 4 years. And construction delays and weather delays kind of threw them all open. So, that's 5 theaters, that's 550 employees total. And, anybody in the business world knows that, the cash flow of 5 businesses over 14 months versus 4 years is challenging. So that's one that we're dealing with right now, and it's actually, we're starting to kind of phase our way out of it because all these theaters are finding their feet. But a more entertaining anecdote, I don't know if you guys remember the movie a few years ago, The Interview, with, it was a dumb satire about North Korea. James Franco was in it and Seth Rogen were in it. Sony was distributing this picture, and they were getting threats, terrorist threats from North Korea or somebody posing as North Korea, and it was around this time of year. And I still remember, I was on 635, it was raining, and our film distributor called me, and he said, "Bill," he said, "Cinemark, AMC, and Regal are not showing this film." And he said, "So if you want to pull out of it, you can." And and I kind of thought about that, and I was talking to my staff, and, me being a dumb former Green Beret, it's like, well, I'm not going to let these people dictate how we do business. We're going to show this stupid movie, and, to hell with North Korea. And So I told my film buyer, I said, no, we're going to show it. And he goes, okay. And so started calling, local PD and, getting ready for what may be a security issue. Well, then Sony just pulled the picture, and we said, okay, well, nobody's showing this movie. And so we showed Team America World Police, which is another dumb satire of a movie that involved, the North Korean leader's father, Kim Jong-il, right? And we're in Un now? I don't know. Anyways, it was just a dumb, funny thing, and that's kind of what we do as a company is dumb things that are entertaining. And so then the entire brand said, well, we'll show it too. And this became international news for 2 weeks. And so it was one of those things that was not a problem, but it was a challenge. And I can't call it strategy. It was probably stupidity on my part, but we kind of just steered into the skid, and it worked out. And, a lot of times when you're a new business and a small business, that's what you do. You steer into the skid, you hope for the best, you pray about it, and God willing, you get through it. And we got through that one, and there was absolutely no repercussions, and the brand got some of the best press it ever got. So, yeah, that's my advice. Steer into the skid and pray.
And close your eyes.
That's right.
Well, let's talk success. What is the one key metric that determines whether or not you're successful? And why is it significant, and how do you measure it?
You got an easier one?
I just like that you're answering first. I get to think about it.
Well, no matter what, none of us can skip past the metric of you got to make money, you got to make profit. You don't have a business. One of the things that is so painful we watch is people that enter the food business because they're good cooks, and so often, all they do is buy a job. And if you're going to buy a job, work for somebody else and let them lay awake at night, and you get a good night's sleep. Beyond that, we measure ours real heavily. In fact, we're having a lot of meetings with each manager in the company. We've got about 100 managers, and first 2 days of this week and 2 days next week, we're having all-day meetings with every manager in the company to really talk about our culture, what we're accomplishing, what kind of people we are. And we use our culture to a high degree to actually manage our business. And if you really do that, then one of the metrics to try to decide if you're being successful or not, are you fulfilling your intentions and your goals, your aspirations, your objectives in that culture, and what that means, how we treat each other. And we talk about pride and, honesty, integrity, character. Those are kind of the golden rule, are kind of the key parts of our culture. And we spend a lot of time talking that, preaching that, and we're going through a renewal preaching of it right now. But if we're not doing that, if we don't have that going on in our restaurants, if we're not proud of our people that are working, they're not proud, and we're not proud of our food or anything else, then we don't feel successful at all.
To echo that, yeah, obviously we are for-profit businesses, so success is deemed on if you can keep the doors open. And, if you're doing that from a business perspective, you're successful. For me personally, there's enough, if you own a business, there's enough things going on in your universe that you can't control whatsoever. You know what I mean? God almighty, government, IRS, landlords, food vendors, everything. There's so many uncontrollables. Why are the guests not coming to this movie? Those kind of things. So those are always there, and they're always going to keep you up at night. But don't ever let your own decisions keep you up at night. And that's been kind of one of my things. I've made plenty of decisions in my life. In my youth, I was a Green Beret sniper, and I'm very proud of the fact that I've never made a decision that kept me up at night once I made the decision. Now, I've had wakeful nights anticipating a decision made or wrestling with a decision, but if you can't sleep at night based on your actions and your decisions, then you're doing something wrong. And so that, to me, has always been the definition of personal success, is that I'm proud of the decisions I've made, that my kids can be proud of me and my wife can be proud of me. And so for me, that's personal success.
I think I'm going to have to get some counseling later.
It only costs you a few beers.
So Tom Landry is quoted as saying, setting a goal is not the main thing. It's deciding how you go about achieving it and then staying with the plan. How imperative is having a plan and executing that plan on a day-to-day basis?
Well, in our case, it's everything to us. And we have to, I think, one of the things we look at is that the consistency of the product we're delivering is of the utmost importance. And I don't know about everybody else, but when I go out to eat, I just want it to taste like it did the last time I was there and to be the same. And so the consistency, which requires a lot of standards, a lot of rules, many more than I wish we had to have, but we do. We have to have them to be able to do it the same day in and day out. In our case, we try to deliver food that we grew up on with our mother and our grandmother. We don't do anything very exotic. We just try to keep those great for everybody that comes in. Sticking with that plan, and then I answered the culture question a minute ago, which really is such a major part of the way we operate, in trying to really let the culture teach all the employees what they do in every instance, because you cannot outplan everything that's going to happen in a restaurant full of people, even on one night. But sticking with that plan, having some pretty rigid ways that you operate is very important for us.
So our management company's name is Two is One, One is None LLC, and that's a saying I learned in the military, and it's kind of a Murphy's Law saying, and you know, soldiers and sailors and Marines have terrible sick senses of humor, but you know, it's something's going to go wrong, you know. So if you have two of something, really you only have one of something because it's going to break, and if you have one, you got none. So for me, planning and redundancy is just, it's, you know, the best management training I ever received was from the United States Army, and you know, one thing about the group I was with was special operations soldiers are not kind of spit and polish soldiers. I mean, you know, we are in the field, in combat, and that's where we excel. I don't know if I could do a proper salute to ever save my life. And, you know, my parade rest was pretty sloppy. My boots were rarely shined. But, you know, if you gave the 12 of us a mission, we could execute a mission. And so we planned extensively. And what we planned for was, we called them second and third order effects. So if I do this, here's how we hope this plan goes. But if I do this and the enemy does this, how does that change our plan, and how does that second order of effect change our new kind of line of planning and third orders? And obviously, you can probably go to 10 to 20 kind of, you know, next orders of effect. So you have to manage that. But in the business world, it's very much the same. And the military taught me controlled chaos. You know, that's what combat was, and the restaurant business is even worse. I miss the days when people were shooting at me. Anybody that owns a business probably knows what I'm talking about. So, you know, you try to plan for the unknown, but at the end of the day, you just got to be nimble. And I think that's the best thing that we have done as an organization is, you know, in 2013, we had 1 theater, and now our group has 7, and that's 700 employees. And so remaining nimble as you grow is very difficult. So we always have a plan. You know, you know, the old boxer saying everybody's got a plan till they get hit is very apt in the entrepreneurial world, and it rarely goes to plan. But you know, we try to have one. But I think our best days are our reactions.
I can't say that any better. The best days are reaction.
Yeah.
Indeed. So how do you differentiate your business from the competition? I know you both businesses, whether it's in the food industry, Paul, you're in the entertainment business. You make sure that people walk in your restaurant, they leave having a good time as a family. Y'all are you're known for that. In a crowded market of restaurants and theaters, how important is it being different? The comments about your theaters and how people go there, they feel good, and you're shooting at families. You're trying to get the families in. How do you differentiate that and keep achieving your goal with it?
You go first? I'll go first. So, this is the most competitive cinema eatery market in the world. We have 10 direct competitors that serve food in the seats. So it's not, I always ask myself, why didn't we go to Milwaukee? There's nobody there, but here we are, and it's going good so far. But there are aspects to it. I mean, Drafthouse is our middle name, and we take that seriously. We have 32 craft local beers on the wall. Our bartenders and our staff are very knowledgeable about that. We are about a 90% scratch-made menu, which a lot of our competitors are not. The kids' cheese sticks, I'll be honest, those are frozen, but I couldn't keep cooks on if I were making them stuffed cheese and breading. So those are frozen. Everything else is pretty much scratch. So that's a differentiating factor. But for me, it's surprise and delight. That's what people remember, and they may never remember a movie experience or even a food experience, but they will remember an experience. And one of the best examples I can give is this was just this October. We're showing Ghostbusters. I mean, it's a Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray classic, and people are just there to see Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters is doing what Ghostbusters does. I mean, it is a full house on a Wednesday or Thursday night. Well, we decided to serve s'mores during the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man scene. Nobody knew about this, and so this is a 250-seat theater. And, I mean, we have every staff member in the building ready with these surprise s'mores for people. And Stay Puft comes on the screen, and we're dropping s'mores. And I'll tell you what, those people will never forget that experience. And, it's those things, that surprise and delight, that I think is our competitive advantage. Because in this day and age, it's a busy news cycle. It's a busy entertainment cycle. But you can't get that anywhere else. And that's what we've always done very well.
I think in our case, one of the real keys, I'll tell you a couple of things, but one of them is never forget what people are paying for. And a lot of restaurants get in the vein of thinking that it's all about the entertainment. Some of them get to thinking it's only the location. If you're on the corner of Broadway and Main, you'll do great no matter what. It's not particularly true. Certainly a help, but remember what people are paying for. In our case, it is food. That's what really brought them there. Everything else is hopefully an add-on. We have a teaching method of calling it stacking attributes. What this amounts to is we see restaurants that are so unique in their location or their atmosphere that they have or the experience that in fact you're willing to go even if it's not quite the best food of their type you're aware of or the best service. We also see restaurants that we go to occasionally that the food's okay, but their service and the way they treat you just makes you want some more of that. And so those people can be successful too. And then you have the ones that are all atmosphere and everything else falls behind that, but they actually stay alive and make it just with nothing but atmosphere. So our philosophy is, and this is what we teach our management, is we try to stack each of those. Can we have the best food, if not the best, at least equal with the best? Have the people that treat the guests properly, have the atmosphere and the experience to be something that people seek and want, and feel like you have the opportunity to do extremely well if you can stack more than just one of those attributes, which many people only do one of them. Some of them do two. And we just try to keep stacking those attributes. A good location, a highway, our first, is another attribute, which we're very excited about, by the way.
Stacking attributes, I like that. Yeah, I'm going to steal that and use it in a next management meeting. Okay, so Coach John Wooden once said, It's the little details that are vital. Little things make big things happen. If you've been to Babe's or you've been to Alamo Drafthouse, they're known for sweating over and having a story behind the littlest of details. How do these details translate to the results of your business, and why are they important?
Most of ours, I think most of those is come about two ways. One is in talking with the guests, finding out what they really like. The other side of it is trying your best to find out what it is that's an irritant and try to erase those irritants. One little bitty deal that maybe little to other people, it's not to us, is we always open 5 minutes before the stated time and we close 5 minutes after. And that's only because of the irritation of people's times being a little different. I've got about 3 clocks at home that all work from the atomic clock in Colorado or wherever it is, and those things don't even agree. So if people do have different time, and you pull up to a place and they're locking the door after you've driven for a while to get there, it's a big irritant. So it's a small thing. I can tell you can go talk to the managers up here at Babe's, and I'll go in and ask them questions about some little old something that I'm interested in, and I know what goes through their mind. Says, my gosh, doesn't he have any idea what's going on around here? We're trying to get food out, But the little things make all the difference in the world, and you cannot ignore them. There's plenty of opportunities to ignore them, but we try to look at every single one of them, and bless our managers' hearts, they have a lot to stay on top of.
No, again, in our business, I think the details are everything, and I'm actually in my day-to-day life, I'm a terrible details person. I'm more of a big picture, and the military taught me, know your weaknesses and hire those around you, or keep those around you that fill in those weaknesses. So my list is long and broad, and I have an incredible staff because I'm not into details, but one of the biggest things that we do, in fact, it is going on right now, is we do a weekly creative meeting with our creative team, and our theater has, it's a 10-person creative team of movie lovers and graphic artists, chef, it's that team that sits around together and puts the crazy stuff, into action that we think about. And it is, per my last example, those little details and those surprise and delight touches are incredible. One of the neat things that we like to do is, our staff gets to see movies usually, a month, sometimes 2 months earlier, and we'll pick out little things from the movie that, the guest doesn't know about, but we do, and we can put a special menu item, on there or something like that. And, those little touches are what people remember. And, we've got Star Wars coming out here on, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Well, when the first one came out 4 years ago, Han Solo was back in it, and this was a big deal. And so we had a menu special that was a Chewbacca Wookiee cookie, and we served it with a cup of milk in a red Solo glass for Han Solo. And, it was, and again, it was a hilarious thing to have on the menu. I like puns, so when my staff came up with that, it's like, we're doing it. But it was somebody made homemade, baklava into, and it was a family recipe. And so it wasn't just a great fun thing, but it actually tasted incredible. And that's the detail that I think a lot of people miss, is you don't want to just have a lot of pomp and circumstance. You don't want just a lot of fireworks. You want quality. And so those are the fun things that we get to do.
How about we give everybody up here a hand? Mayor, thank you very much for hosting these two fine gentlemen. Paul, Bill, we have a company in North Richland Hills that's similar to the cooler business that everybody's aware of, Yeti. But we have our own, and it's called Bison. And thank you for your time, and we have a gift we'd like to share with you, each of you. These are coolers, and then within them are cups, but they've been engraved with your business logos on. Thank you very much.